Hey everyone, welcome to today's class. In today's class, we're going to look into coding proper, right? And remember, this channel is dedicated in teaching full stack web development. So if you're interested in becoming a web developer, a full stack or back end or front end, is the right channel for you. So we're going to start from front end development. And for front end development, we're going to start from HTML. So remember, in our last classes, I've talked about what software development is, what web development is, our front end versus back end, and then setup, right? Our tool and setup. So if you have not seen any of those videos, please make sure you go back and watch it, because it's going to give you an understanding. You will not be confused or stuck, right? So today we are going to start from the front end and from the from HTML, right? So now let me just give you a little overview for those just joining us. If you are coming across this page or channel for the first time, welcome to Code with Chris. This channel is dedicated in teaching web development from scratch for free. So if you are interested in becoming a web developer, a full stack web developer, a front end web developer, this channel is the right channel for you. So I urge you to subscribe to this channel, turn on your notification bell so that you'll be the first to be notified whenever new video drops. And also don't forget to share. Sharing is very important so that you get to other learners, right? And also follow us on our pages across other platforms like Facebook and TikTok at the same handle, Code with Chris. All right, so back to the class. Now I'm going to give you a little overview of what front end is, right? So what is front end? Front end, is the user part of a website, the user experience. It deals with the client side, the user experience and user interface, right? What the user directly interacts with. And when it comes to front end, there are languages and technologies, right? I use languages and technologies because there are some technologies that is not referred to as a programming language, right? So there are some languages and technologies that are involved in achieving the front end, right? So now, and this ranges from HTML, the CSS and JavaScript. Now HTML, what HTML does is that it is the structure, right? The full meaning of HTML means what? Hypertext markup language, right? So it is a structure for HTML for web pages, right? So, and CSS means cascading style sheets. It is used to add layouts, add beautification and styles, designed to our web page. After we have created the structure, HTML is quite limited because it's just kind of the structure, right? So after we have created the structure, we use CSS to make it beautiful, to make it look good and pleasant to to the eyes, right, to the user. In fact, it's very, very important because every website or web app you go to, you find out that one of the first impression it gives it is the user interface and experience. So once the user interface and experience of a website is bad, it's going to pursue users. First of all, judge the website by the interface. Oh wow, you go to this website, say wow, this website looks good, right? That means the user interface and experience is very beautiful, right? It was well styled and all of that, combining colors from the background color to button colors to font sizes and weights to different approaches in styling. So it's very, very important. And then when we come to JavaScript, what it does is that it adds functionality to that particular website. It gives it more behavior. Now when you click a button, what should happen, right? When you submit a form, what should happen? When you are filling a form, what should happen? So it gives you this behavior and interactivity, right, to a particular web page. So, and then we now come down to JavaScript framework or library like React, Angular, Vue, and all of that. So, and then we also come down to CSS libraries like Tailwind CSS, Bootstrap, Material Icon, and the rest of them. So now we are going to start from HTML, right? So I'm going to give you a breakdown of what HTML is. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is a standard markup language used to build or create web pages that browsers can display. It describes the structure and content of a web page, ranging from the headers, the paragraphs, the lists, the images, the links, the forms, etc. HTML in some way is not regarded as a programming language because is no logic or no loop, right? It's just a way to map up content, so browsers and other tools like search engines and screen readers can actually understand the web page, right? So that is what HTML does. So its role is just to give it a structure, right? It defines content on the page like text, images and links. It provides what a semantic structure, important for accessibility and what SEO, search engine optimization. So it acts as the contact or contract that CSS and JavaScript work against, right? And it provides the markup required for forms, enabling multimedia and metadata, right, that affects search engine and social sharing. So that is what HTML is all about, right? So now, how does our browser actually read our HTML? How does our browser actually read, how does it display those websites, right? So, when a browser loads a URL, right, it follows a pipeline that turns HTML, both HTML, the CSS and JavaScript into a pixels on the screen, and from the browser passes the HTML markup token by token and builds a what is known as DOM, document object model tree, and each HTML element becomes a node in the DOM. So, and then the browser combines the DOM and the CSSOM into a that tree, right? So nodes that will be visible and have computed styles. So now the browser calculates the size, position of each what rendered tree node. So this determines where each element will appear on the page. So it determines where each element will actually appears on the page. The browser fills in the pixels, draws the text, colors, borders, shadows on layers. So layers are composed together to form the final image on the screen, which you see on every website. So that is how the browser actually reads HTML files. It actually reads a web page, right? So now we're going to be creating our first, if you have not downloaded our working tool, our code tool, you can actually go and download it. So we're going to be creating our first file starting from HTML. So to create a file, you click here or you right click, you see new, and then you create a file. So we're going to name it anything. I'm going to name it index.html. Now remember, whichever language or technology you are trying to use, it must end with the extension, right? So I have index. This is index. This index is the file name, is the name of this file. So you can name it anything at all. It could be anything at all. So I decide to name it index, and then dot the extension. HTML is the extension. So if you are writing CSS, that means it will be .css. If you are writing JavaScript, it will be .js. If you are writing Python, it will be .py. So whichever language or technology you are trying to use, it must end with that particular extension so that your files will be read as that particular language or technology. So right, so this file must end with what its extension, which is what HTML. So I click enter. So when I click enter, one of the things I'm going to do is to increase the font size of my files. Okay, I'm going to put it up to 18 so that it will be very visible, right? So now, after you have done that, the next thing we are going to do is to bring out what is known as boilerplate or HTML skeleton. This is a pre-installed HTML skeleton. Of course, HTML has actually evolved. HTML started from HTML1 version to, and currently we are in HTML5, right? So HTML1, 2, 3, and 5. So this has actually what HTML has actually evolved, right, to HTML5. So, and HTML5, it started from HTML4. It has a pre-structure, right, which is known as boilerplate. Unlike old days. In fact, old days where when HTML just started, HTML was written using Notepad, right? But now technology has increased. There's advances in technology, so it has been made easier. We have VS Code, and then this VS Code helps us to write our code more productively and easier. So now, to bring out our boilerplate, what we are going to do is we click Shift 1 to bring out this hyphen. Shift 1 to bring out this hyphen. So we click it, right? So this is what is known as HTML skeleton or boilerplate. So this is known as HTML skeleton or boilerplate. So this is one of the ways you can actually bring it out. So another way you can bring it out is by actually typing it. So we type HTML, right? So, and we go for HTML5, HTML5, right? So this is the current version of HTML. So we go for HTML5. So these are the two ways you can actually bring out your boilerplate. So whenever you hear a boilerplate, it's talking about this pre-structure of HTML. So now, the next thing, okay, we're gonna see all this. I'm going to explain everything about this boilerplate, right? Starting from this, HTML is it comes with what is known as elements or tags. Elements that are enclosed with tags, right? So as we go deeper into our coding classes, you are going to be understanding most of these terms, right? So now, elements and what tags. So this is actually an element known as doc type. This doc type is very important. If it's not in your HTML structure, you are going to have an issue. It's very, very important. So now this document, doc type, it's an element, right? That tells us what is the document type, and the document type is what HTML. Document type is HTML. So it's it's a declaration placed at the very top of an HTML document. So in a modern HTML5. So it's very, very important. So why? Because it tells the browser to render the page in standard mode. It's very, very important. It tells the browser to render the page in standard mode. Standard mode causes the browser to follow modern web standard for layout and CSS behavior. So you can see that is very, very important. Very, very, very important. Historically, in other HTML's specs and browser version, the doc type was long and complicated, but in HTML5 is now, it has been made simplified. It has been simplified, for easier coding, right? So without a proper doc type, some browsers may switch to a very shrink mode, right, where layout behaviors mimics very old browsers, do you get, and causing inconsistency, rendering, and layout bugs. So always include it at the first line. It must be. So in fact, it has been made easy just to bring out your HTML skeleton. You can type it and then you pick HTML5. So it has been made easy, and there's no case for you to forget, right? Except you are trying to type. You can actually type all these things from beginning by yourself. So that's using Shift 1 is just easy way to bring it out. So you can actually type it by yourself. So now the next element we have here, so this is known as attribute. We are still going to come to that. This is known as element. because attribute actually gives more information to an element. So, and now for this attribute, it's asking us of the language, which shows that it is English. En here means English. And then next element we have in our HTML skeleton or boilerplate is the head section. Now this head section, it gives us a meta information of our our file. This meta information did not or does not actually show in our browser, right? So, and under here we also have a title. Here we can give it a title, the title of our page, whichever title you want to give it. You can actually give it a title. All right, so the title can be my first web page. So my first web page, right? So now we have the body. So inside the body, this is where we are going to be writing our code. Inside the body, we write our code, right? So all the code we need to write, we write it inside the body. You cannot come down here and write your code. Remember, you cannot come down here and write your code. Your code must be inside your body. So the body contains, or is going to house, is serving as a container. It's going to house every other code we're going to write. And then we have the closing elements for this HTML. So now let's just write one of our first code. We're going to use h1. H1 is an element. In our next class, I'm going to give a detailed explanation of what HTML elements are. I don't want our classes to be quite too long. That's why I'm taking it brief by brief. So now h1, so I'm going to write my first web page. So now this is the code we have. So now next thing is to run it in our browser, and there are two ways you can run it in your browser. Remember, in the installation time, I told you to actually install live server, right? So I told you to install this live server. So this live server helps you to run it easily in your browser, and when you install it, it will be at the bottom right of your page. You see it, go live. So this is go live. You just click go live. It's going to load in your browser, in your default browser, whichever browser you have as a default browser, is going to load there. So you can see now we have my first web page, right? So this is our first web page. All right, so another way to actually display this in our browser is just to come to this file. You come here and then you right click, you see copy path. So you copy path and then you open your browser, whichever browser you want to open. Of course, you open a tab and then you paste the URL. It's going to load that same particular file. So that is it. That is how we can actually display our file in our browser. So you can see, so that is it. So in our next class, we are going to go into our coding proper. So make sure you go back and watch every video. Don't leave any video behind, right? Make sure you go back and watch every video so that you can be able to catch up with every classes. And also don't forget to like, comment and share, right? Thank you for watching. Bye. See you in the next class.